Welcome back, guys. We are back on the 540. I want to shout out to my 14-year-old son. Yesterday I was busy all day with the business and had things and commitments to do. And I said, I'd like you to pull the throats off of these combines. And with the right tools and the forklift, he did it. Very proud of him. Now we'll go look at the parts machine. And he did this one. So very proud of him. He is learning just like I did years ago. I had a helper, an older gentleman that taught me a lot of things. He worked for my father, and I tagged along all summer long, and we worked on combines and did many different things. So I'm proud of him on his own initiative. I showed him how it works, how it comes off. And I came back that evening, he had this all done, and I told him to pull the bars. He did. These bars ain't too bad. However, I did discover, and I suggest you guys get you a set, they're now only $21 a piece at the dealer. So I have to decide which throat I'm going to use. Another thing, makes me question things. A lot of carnage here. I think this was ran loose. Look at how that is wore out there. Missing, or this is all sloped. I've rebuilt one of these before. Look how this is pulled down. I don't know if it comes from ignorance and not knowing how to adjust it, never adjusting it, ran loose, I don't know. But we have it off, we're looking at it. There's just a lot of different things here that are not adding up. And so I want to investigate it and do it right. And then I discovered this. Let me raise this up. So I was getting ready to work on this, and I'm like, wow, what's causing this vibration to bust this thing up? And they've been under here welding and clobbering, bolts are missing. So I'm thinking about tearing into the other one, sandblasting, painting it, if its bottom is good. Well, here's the second unit. We don't have near the problems there or there, but kind of have the same problem right here. Why is this bolt missing? Looks like they may have been in here on this panel before. So, it's strange to me. We'll have to see what's going on. Looks like they brought something in here, a big rock. But our sides are better. So, I'm gonna investigate more. That one's completely blowed up through. What's going on here, I do not know, but I think we'll pick one and we'll go with it. Okay guys, I've got some of the parts loose here. I got them bolts out of there, the tensioning of the chain device, I got that all off right there. I spun it around until I found the master link, and it's amazing to me sometimes how things work. There's no cotter keys in here on this guy. It's amazing that it stayed in. Must have broke here at one time because this one doesn't appear to be a master link. So I'll have to investigate kind of what in the world's going on. And this has been stretched here, and so I just got a price on a new one of these. Now I have a different source, $1,044 for a feeder house chain now from Massey. So we won't be doing that. We'll probably be using one out of the parts combine. Okay, here is the master links. I finally found them. That was not the master link. However, it's missing a cotter key. But look at this. This is This is it right there. I didn't even have to take the cotter key out. And so we will be replacing this chain. I got to get this out, and then we'll put it out for scrap. We have the chain pulled out. Here's my helper Brick. We're dog sitting for my father-in-law. Brick's debut on YouTube. He's a good old dog. He likes to sleep more than he likes to walk. Thought I would show you guys this. That's about wore through. This is on the parts machine. But evidently their spring broke, which is what was broke on mine, not holding this tensioner on the chain. So they put a, looks like a hardware store spring and some nuts to take up the space. So always run into something, that's for sure. I think we have a good and proper chain. I don't know if it was replaced, but it looks awfully good compared to the other one. For an 18-hour machine, and we have right proper master links right there. So I'm going to take this out, set it aside, and inspect it later. We'll clean it, and I'm going to be reinstalling that at $1,044. I can take a chance on that, and it ain't like I got 1,000 acres to do. Moving along, got this side off. Over here, this drum appears to be in good shape. It has a dent in it, but it's not broke out here. I have seen these crack right in here, and that other one has a crack. I think this here, I wanted to show you. Of course, we will confirm with the book, but that's how all that's supposed to look. This is the only side out of 4 of them that was correct, if you will. And that puts spring tension down on the roller. And so we're taking that apart. All of this hardware is going to look passable, other than we need springs and some washers and things. So, all right, guys, we are back on the throat. We've got it blasted. I still need to pull all of those bearings off of there, which I will do today. We've got a few things to weld. We took the one off the parts combine. We got some cracks right there, which we will get taken care of. We'll get this all cleaned up. We have a new plate from Massey. It's just easier than fixing the other one. 260093M1. All right, we have some preventative reinforcement on the drum. This is the take-up drum on the feeder house chain. I have welded these before, and so I wrapped that with 16 gauge. That just reinforces it there in the middle. I tried to pull these dents out. I was somewhat successful. Drilled a hole, threaded a bolt, heated it up, pulled against it, and then I sealed them back up. It was just taking too much time, and it really ain't going to affect things. I did make them better. So this is ready to prime and get ready for paint. So on to this. We're going to pull these bearings and these holders here. This is a big no-no. This has been crammed down to where there is no safety, and I don't know why, because these clutch discs look good, and then that causes that to crack. That is not kosher. We're going to take this apart, and we will get this adjusted right when we put it back together, but we're going after these bearings and clean all this up and get the sand out of here. We got our metal plate to bolt in, and we should be moving right along. So, looking good. Moving right along today, we have the slip clutch apart for the table elevator. We'll have to figure out and do some measurements to see if these are wore out or if they got oil impregnated. I'm suspecting they maybe got oil impregnated. So we will keep disassembling and go from there. So we're down to this piece we have to get off, and then we'll be back to our holder and bearing. We've already got the sprocket off of this side, and snap rings in there. And these bearings might have survived, but I'm here, we're gonna change them. They look pretty decent, honestly. All right, guys, let me show you what I had to do here. This bearing, I checked my parts book, is in a removable race right there, and I'll clean that up. But I heated the bearing up with a rosebud torch. There's no snap ring on this side. And I heated the bearing up with a rosebud, and then that got all the grease and the seals off of it. I wanted round tubing, but all I had was square today. And then I welded that to the race of the bearing to get it off at 3 sides. And then I welded the nut. I didn't get this straight, I was holding it by hand, but I took my slide hammer handle on a bolt, and then we could just pull her out of there, and it was stuck in there tight. You can see that white rust. I had to heat this up with a rosebud. Didn't have to get it too red to where it expanded enough that I could get it out. So that was in there. That was quite a challenge right there to get that out. All right, we have got everything painted. We used an Agco enamel machinery paint. This is a farmer paint job. I am no professional painter. Just wanted you all to know that. I did prime it and I did paint it. So it was sandblasted down to bare metal. Picked the best chain out of the 2 machines. This chain is actually pretty nice. That's $1,040 now. I think there's some aftermarket places that would be cheaper. Okay guys, I have my bearing. I'm starting on the snap ring side, so that way when I hammer over on that side, because you got to get them in here, you want to make sure this is all shiny. Let me get my bearing number. I happen to have these in my stock. 831822M1. Now, I've got a few of these. Let's see if we can figure out which one. This is a Japan Koyo, so it would have been an original. It is a CR207. I think that's a CR. All right, guys, I put in 1.5 hours tonight. Got the new bearings in. This shaft turns wonderfully. That's going to be nice. Got them over here. Got those in. Got more parts cleaned and painted. I'm getting ready to put the disc here where the clutch is on. You want to make sure that you have your shims and your spacer on there all the right direction so that everything lines up. So what I'm doing is now this sprocket is made to slip. Now in certain conditions, the book talks about putting in a countersunk bolt here into this through into the outer disc when you want to make it rigid. You don't just cram the nut down. So I've got a little bit of never seize. You don't want it to fly out and get on the disc. One thing that I have done in the past and been very successful at, these were kind of glazed over. These are your slip discs. They were kind of glazed over, and run them through the sandblaster and it kind of renews them. They're nice and thick, so I think we'll be fine. I think this combine was the parts machine had a major oil leak here, and that's why they had it crammed and they were all glazed over. I haven't priced these in a while, but last I remember they were a little pricey. So they're going to go right on here, then our sprocket, then another one, and then our final thing, and then we can start putting the disc and everything, or the nuts on. Now we got that together, and we have our discs in there, and I think there's a lot of grip there, so we should be good. And we do not want any paint on the inside. Want that all to be clean, fresh metal for those clutch discs to grip onto. So we'll work on this outer area now. Now you see here we have everything installed. We have our spacer, our cups, and the spring. Now we're going to measure the distance here according to the manual. Now what we got to have here is 1 inch and 9/16 between this edge and this edge. So let me get a tape measure. Now if our clutches are wore and I don't have any new ones to compare them to, maybe we won't be able to achieve that without closing it, but you don't want this like it was, completely smashed together. Now if you look here, you will see that we have the 1 inch and 9/16, and the spring is not completely closed like it was. So they had crammed that over. If you're going to run this without it, you have the bolts that go in here and come through here. You'd have to loosen it and align them, and then you put them in with a Allen's key. The book talks about it over here. Under certain operating conditions where the clutch slips excessively, 4 flat-headed cap screws, 1/2 inch by 1 3/8 with countersunk lock washers supplied loose with combine, can be installed to lock the slip clutch. You don't cram the spring. I have my UHMW in here. This is my adaptation. I'm going to try. I want the chain slats running on this slick UHMW. Anyway, it's a wear-resistant liner. This is 1/2 inch thick. I've beveled the edge. I moved it back because I'm pretty sure the head has a lip that goes in here. And then I countersunk my carriage bolts, and they go through, so they will not, and then they're bolted on the back side. So my goal is to stop the stress cracking in the floor, and hopefully it runs quieter. I remember when these are empty, you can hear them clattering on the floor. There's like 3 lines of panels, so it's like crossing railroad tracks continually, and I think that's what does that, bumps that floor and vibrates it and stress cracks it. That's my opinion. This is something new I've never tried, but if it works good on here, I'm going to do it on the 300. If it doesn't, we'll just have to unzip the bolts out of the back and get her out of there. Okay guys, I have my bearings put in. This one. I had to heat it up red hot and douse it with water because the bearing was loose in it, just like I did a few videos back on the shaker arm. These go on here, which in turn go on here. It's your roller, you can't get to them. So you want to make sure when you're working on this that you get everything the way you want it and change those, because you don't want to go back in there. And their part number was an 831112M1, but that has transitioned over to ACX 3043120. These are made in Italy and are the SKF brand, so those are very good. I just tapped on each one of these carriage bolts, and we're ready to flip it over and put the other one on, and then we'll be ready to install the roller. Okay guys, I worked till 7:30 last night. Now granted, this hasn't taken me all of this time. I get distractions during the day, so probably been on this after I had it painted about a day, honestly. But I get distractions here at the main shop and situations I have to deal with having a business. But what I ran into was, I bought a couple of extra washers here. The books are very unclear. I had 4 of these left over from the teardown, and I don't even remember where they had them, but I know they had them in the wrong place. And I'll show you here in the book, it doesn't really even talk about the washers in these numbers. But the units, all, including these, that's why we're making those blocks William showed you, have wallered out these holes right here. And this is a new washer that has a cone on it. Let me show you. And it would be better if these were machined flat and went up in the holes originally, but they didn't. What that's supposed to do is keep this pin straight. When you, and here, have your second washer on, and you can't put two washers over there. I tried. These are tight now. And it keeps the pin straight. But these are a little bit wore and still want to cant over. So we're making those blocks that'll lay here. Then I'll weld them right here. Then the pin can do its work up there and wear on the block and not on the hole. So there is washers here, little thin ones. Let me get them. Right here, they measure 30 thousandths. They go where those are. On, this is the one I've added here. We made another one here just to give this a little bit more bite because these are coned inward. So we made that washer on the plasma cutter. And then when we tighten this all down, we'll have flat surfaces to pull against. So I hope to have all the wear out of here. And this is about completed. You can see how that's wore oval. And I think that problem would have been averted if they would have machined that round instead of coned. And then it would have popped in there, and then you'd have wore on your washer. Sorry, you would have wore on your washer, it would have popped in there. It would have went up through the hole, I think would have been it. And if I was good with a lathe, I would make some new pieces like that, but I got to keep moving on. We are at the 12th of September and corn is turning quickly.
Hello everyone, William here. Charles has had some kind of an epiphany on this, and he will talk about that, I'm sure, in the video. And he's tasked me with cutting out some parts. Over here on the arc droid, we have our first part cut out. Pay no mind to this little nugget here. We're using some 2" by 1/2" flat stock. So the piece rather, is not wide enough to carry the arc to finish up the cut. But I don't want to start cutting into the 1/2" plate I have laying around because 1/2" plate is pretty expensive nowadays. This is the part we have traced with the simple trace function on the arc droid. Let's go ahead and hit the cut button. Spark shower. Check out the channel. I got some awesome videos on this thing. And there we have it. Got these 2 slugs banged out for Charlie. We'll turn it back over to him. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Awesome to put the right tool to the right job.
Okay, I will show you my trick here to getting the table elevator chain in. Use the ratchet strap to pull it together. Then once you're below here, you can roll it forward to get the hook out. I want to make sure, I'm pretty sure I've got everything on the same cog, all the chains. And I got them facing the right way according to the pictures in the manual. You don't want to get them in backwards. And so I will get this off. I got my master links in, and then we should be able to adjust it up. The chain is connected together. I'm going to now begin to tension it up. And I've got this set up in my holes for corn, I believe. I do have new stickers coming that will give you correct indication when needed. And then we've got to put these blocks in that we made, and then we'll be on to that shaft down there. When you tension this up, you got to make sure and have this bolt loose, and then you pull it that way, which pushes the roller down the throat. And I'm going to get the correct tension, or make sure it's even, by measuring the end of this sticking out so that we have it the same on both sides. Now in your book, it talks about 1 3/8 to 1 5/8 deflection with 40 pounds of pull measured from the free sag position and from the edge of the access door. So that would be over here, and that's a lot yet of deflection, and it really don't take much for me to pull that up. So I'm going to tighten it up a little bit more, and then once I have it on the machine and running everything in, I will probably double check that deflection. I now have the chain tensioned. We got good movement, and she's snug, and all level. You want to make sure you're not one tooth ahead on one side, so we're good there. That all worked out. And over here on each side, we have 1 1/16 from there to there, so we know we're even. And now we're going to put our jam nuts on, and then we're going to take care of our block situation up there. You can see as we get everything in how it's wore over. We're going to solve that problem. All right, guys, got some little incidentals to wrap up here. We've got our bearing ready for here. This is on the shaft that goes out and meets the head to power the head. That goes on there. We've got everything cleaned up. Press the old bearings off with the press. And so the smaller bearing that goes on the inside and by the throat is 831087 M1. And this one I had to buy. I did not have it in stock, made in Hungary. So this unit is going to go on here when we get that on. The second unit I had in stock, actually had several of these, 831822 M1. These are the same ones in the top shaft of the table elevator. So 831822 M1. And so for the win, had that in stock, I don't know how many years. It is a Mexico bearing, SKF. So we've had SKF from Italy and SKF from Mexico. So I find that interesting. We'll get those pressed on. And I almost made a big mistake. Do not forget you'll be pressing them back off, your flangette ring. So got everything polished up. Gonna get that all pressed on, and then get that all back together. Bearings will be renewed. This would be, if you're in the shop, about a 30-minute job. And the sprocket is good enough. I think it's in great shape, honestly. All right, guys, we have this installed. New bearings, spacer put in correctly. Had to slide it back on the end of its shaft. New bearings here. I turn these nuts around so when you're working here, don't get your knuckles beat up. And there is room for aligning onto the square, so that will come into play when we hook up to the head. I got these blocks welded. Hated to have to do that, but we figured it out. So those are going to hold the pins more rigid, and they're able to float up and down. All right, guys, I haven't finished. Had a couple boo-boos today. Kind of ticked me off. For some reason, I had the bright idea that I didn't need these lower brackets, so I sliced them right off, had to weld them back on. We'll have to touch that up because they hold this board here. And I wanted to get rid of the one that angled out here that gets this, keeps this shield and everything, but I'm getting rid of the shield. And then, for some reason, we measured the chain one link off from the old one. So I think it's the heat getting to me. We're back in a heat wave. This is completed. This will be the final installment of the table elevator. I'm putting my clamps back on. I've got them all painted. And we have to put the hydraulic hose underneath when we go to mount it up. I don't think that we're worthy of the video. All new 60 chain. Look how bad that one was. Wow. That one was extremely wore. We could almost make that a circle sideways. We've got chain from Japan on. We've got bearings from Hungary and Japan. And we've got this added in. We're going to see how that does. We've got our table elevator chain in correctly. We have all new bearings here. And we have everything adjusted up. We are going to go over this measurement. This is correct. When this spring is compressed 2 13/16 from the bracket to the nut. 2 13/16. So we have our chain correct, and this board guides it and keeps the slap out of it. So table elevator completed. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching along this journey.